From Turner Broadcasting System, this is the Headline News Network.
You're nobody till somebody loves you. You're nobody till somebody cares. You're always a somebody to a new pet from the Humane Society. And no matter who you are, there's one waiting just for you. You're nobody till somebody loves you. So find yourself somebody to love. Let a pet touch your heart. Adopt from your local Humane Society.
Right now, somewhere, there's someone like you. Someone who really wants to light up. And they're reaching out, not for a cigarette, but for help to quit from the Cancer Information Service's free helpline, 1-800-4-CANCER. So don't light up.
It's for you.
Call up. Hello?
Headline News, I'm Lynn Vaughn. Oliver North may face tougher questions today. The chairman of the Senate panel investigating the Iran-Contra affair says North may not have been completely truthful during last week's testimony. Former National Security Advisor John Poindexter is scheduled to testify tomorrow. Mary Tillotson has more.
Oliver North's first 4 days of public testimony pointed tantalizingly up the White House chain of command toward his former NSC boss and the committee's next witness, John Poindexter.
The facts to which Oliver North has testified to date generally have corroborating evidence that would support that he believed he was acting under the chain of command and that the President of the United States had authorized his activities.
According to members of Congress, one of the documents showing North was acting on behalf of superiors is a memo from North to Poindexter, requesting presidential approval to use profits from the Iran arms deal for covert activities. Committee Chairman Daniel Inouye says Admiral Poindexter's notes on the memo imply presidential approval was given.
And the Admiral says, I approve, and then there was a notation, brief the President approves.
Inouye says the memo makes no specific mention of the possibly illegal diversion of money to the Contras. The committee clearly will question Poindexter closely on whether he did brief the president and on what, and what, if anything, the president did approve. But Committee Vice Chairman Warren Rudman says there has been too much emphasis on such legal questions, rather than on the broad policy questions raised by the White House decision to try and ransom hostages by selling arms to Iran, and by some administration officials misleading Congress about White House involvement in the war in Nicaragua.
In a democracy, if you carry this to its logical extreme, you don't have a democracy anymore.
Senator Rudman says members of Congress will have had a chance to express their views, put Oliver North in that broader context, by the time they finish questioning North, probably Monday. But Congress will be playing catch-up, given the 4 days that Oliver North, virtually unchallenged by elected members of Congress, defined the context his way. A context that was flattering both to North and the administration officials and policies he apparently served so loyally. Mary Tillotson, CNN, Washington.
Directors and producers agreed to meet today in a last-ditch effort to avoid a strike, but a Directors Guild spokesman says preparations are still underway for tomorrow's walkout at NBC, Warner Brothers, and Columbia Pictures. The main issue for directors has been residual payments. Producers have announced that all Guild members will be locked out if the union strikes. In Northern Ireland, more violence is expected today during Protestant parades marking a nearly 300-year-old victory over Roman Catholic forces. Police say an IRA sniper killed a Protestant man yesterday at a bonfire in Belfast marking the anniversary. Police and British Army troops are on full alert in case of rioting. Jury selection begins today in the perjury trial of former White House aide Michael Deaver. He's accused of trading on his connections at the White House to become a multi-million-dollar lobbyist. He is charged with several counts of lying to Congress and lying to a federal grand jury about his activities since leaving the White House. If convicted, Deaver faces up to 25 years in prison and $34,000 in fines. Opponents and supporters of USA to Nicaragua exchanged shouts outside a Beverly Hills church where a memorial service for the late CIA Director William Casey was being held. Some demonstrators carried signs supporting Oliver North, while others shouted, "U.S. out of Nicaragua." One supporter of Casey's said the service was not meant to be turned into a political arena.
Casey was a man that stood for freedom, to allow people like that to do what they're doing. He had to do a dirty job. He had to get down in the muck. That's part of this world. And we felt that the man was phenomenal because he took the job that had to be done.
Casey died in May following surgery in December to remove a brain tumor. The name Oliver North is on the tip of many an American tongue, and now it's on car bumpers too. People across America are showing their support for the former White House aide. A small group of Republicans has even launched a campaign to draft North for president. North says he has no political ambitions. And the trial begins today in what may be the nation's most infamous child molestation case. Peggy McMartin Buckey and her son Raymond are accused of sexually abusing students at the preschool Buckey's mother founded. Ann McDermott reports on the case and how it has changed.
The allegations that surfaced in early 1984 were nothing less than monstrous. Youngster after youngster from the McMartin preschool in Manhattan Beach, California, claimed to have been raped there or sodomized, sometimes even threatened with death. And they blamed their torment on their teachers. Virginia McMartin, founder of the highly regarded school, her daughter Peggy McMartin Buckey, and her children Raymond Buckey and Peggy Ann Buckey, plus 3 other women who taught there. But now only Raymond Buckey and his mother will go on trial.
The evidence and the indication as to the other 5 is incredibly weak and could not justify the possibility of filing criminal charges.
The defense team has argued that the evidence is weak against the Buckeys as well, and that the case was mishandled from the beginning. That would have been in September of 1983, when the Manhattan Beach Police Department mailed a letter to all McMartin parents. It said Raymond Buckey had been arrested on charges of child molestation, and parents were asked to question their children about him. Those charges against Buckey were eventually dropped, but the defense contends the letters whipped up a kind of hysteria, which was later inflamed by therapists who interviewed McMartin students. Before the therapists got involved, only one child claimed he'd been abused. Defense attorneys believe those therapists prodded the other children into making similar claims.
Children, I sense, came to believe what didn't happen did happen. So there has been a mind distortion.
The 7 teachers were arrested, and children began testifying during an 18-month preliminary hearing. Former defendant Peggy Ann Buckey recalled her frustration as the children's accusations grew wilder.
Like some of the allegations, children went in airplanes, children saw babies killed, and no one questions it. No one says, wait a minute, how come no one saw this? Where are these dead babies?
One who did ponder such questions was prosecutor Glenn Stevens, whose doubts eventually led to his removal from the case. He's since come to believe all the defendants are innocent. But prosecutor Lael Rubin seems confident the 100 felony molestation counts against the Buckeys will be proven.
We expect to present evidence to substantiate those charges and to have a jury make that decision.
Although the trial is finally getting underway, no one expects a conclusion anytime soon. After all, the preliminary hearing took a year and a half. The trial itself could take 2 years. Ann McDermott, CNN, Los Angeles.
You may have noticed our new look this morning. That's because Headline News has a new home. We have moved our studios to the new CNN Center in downtown Atlanta. You still get the most up-to-date news coverage, but now from the world's most advanced television news facility. Coming up, a look at some holiday vacations strictly for the adventurous. We'll be back.
Special arrangement with Reader's Digest, we proudly present one of the most extraordinary music treasuries ever made. You get 100 of the world's most beautiful melodies, and here they are. From the entire world of great music, you get the most loved melodies ever written. These 100 beloved favorites without a single unknown, unwanted passage. Here is a priceless shortcut to musical knowledge for your family. From Reader's Digest, classic melodies so beautiful they became giant hits of our time. Every selection is one the whole world loves. All 100 world's most beautiful melodies are now yours on 3 records, 3 cassettes, or 3 8-track tapes. And the price, just $19.98. These Reader's Digest treasuries are not sold in any store. Here's how to order.
To save COD fees, have your credit card ready and call toll-free 1-800-228-2225. 1-800-228-2225. Or send only $19.98 to 100 Music Treasures, Box 3815, Grand Central Station, New York, New York, 10163. Specify whether 3 records, 3 cassettes, or 3 8-tracks. Write it down. Offer ends without notice. Or call 1-800-228-2225 now.
Two people are dead and 7 others are injured in Queens, New York. Police say 1 or more gunmen attacked the victims last night while driving through an area known for illegal drug sales. Federal aviation officials say it will be several days before they know exactly what caused a seaplane to crash in a Minnesota lake yesterday. Authorities believe one of the plane's wingtips caught the water, flipping the aircraft upside down. All 5 people aboard the plane were killed. California authorities say the driver of a speeding car that caused a derailment of a freight train will be charged with drunken driving. More on the accident from Luann Sanders.
Los Angeles firefighters say it will take at least 2 days to clean up the mess. Some 40,000 gallons of crude oil and diesel fuel gushed over the highway when a Southern Pacific freight train derailed on a rural section of Lancaster tracks. The early morning derailment was prompted by a car accident that tore apart the rails. The driver of the car carrying 2 passengers says he saw no train crossing sign. When the car crossed the tracks, it overturned, seriously injuring 2 of the men inside. Firefighters say the approaching train derailed when it crossed the damaged tracks.
Yeah, the three passengers of the vehicle were injured. They were extricated by our men and taken to the hospitals. They were not hit by the train. The car was off the tracks, and the reason the train derailed was that the tracks had been taken out.
Crews began containing the spill by diking the area and plugging holes on the 9 leaking tankers. Officials say the spill poses no apparent danger. Environmental agencies have been notified and are checking the area, while firefighters continue their search for any flammable vapors. Luann Sanders, CNN reporting.
The battle over the infamous garbage barge continues today in a New York courtroom. Brooklyn is fighting a state plan to burn the 6 million pounds of trash in that borough, saying the environmental effects have not been studied. The barge was loaded 4 months ago and began its journey in search of a dump site. The barge has been refused by 6 states and 3 foreign countries. Liberty Island is straining under the pressure. Millions of tourists have visited the landmark during the past year, and Dave Monsies reports most think it is an experience worth waiting for.
The Park Service concedes it's a marvel anyone can manage the number of people who lay siege to Liberty Island in just one day. As many as 20,000 people a day who land on 10 acres of rock with just one attraction that has just one door and one way to the top.
I wouldn't say I was glad I did it because my legs all cramped up.
In the year between last July 5th and this, 3.5 million people have waited up to 5 hours in 3 lines to buy tickets, to wait for a boat from Manhattan to Liberty Island, and finally to queue up for the long, sweaty stairway assault that leads 354 steps to the statue's crown.
We are at 200% above maximum visitation month by month that we've ever experienced out here.
Call it patriotism or punishment or both. Officials say the Lady of New York Harbor received more callers in the past year than ever before or probably ever again.
I figured it would be a little faster than this, but so far I'm just bearing with it and just take it as it comes.
In fact, since the completion of her restoration last year, there has been no slack time for the statue, and only twice has the island been forced to close. once for a September hurricane and again for a January blizzard. On both occasions, though, people who had plans to come here complained that their days were ruined. But no pain, no gain. The real summit of the statue is the crown, and the only way up and down is on that set of 354 stairs.
Then making it down, I couldn't walk down. I had to slide down on my hands.
Not all do so well. An average of 5 people a day pass out trying to make it to the top. Dave Monsies, CNN, at the Statue of Liberty.
Here's some fancy food for thought: chocolate-covered potato chips. In New York, more than 31,000 food retailers displayed these and other gourmet delicacies at the International Fancy Food and Confection Show. Organizers say it was the biggest crowd ever to attend the event. If you're looking for a little excitement on your next vacation, adventure travel may be the answer. Tom Cassidy reports on the industry that is spicing up the lives of many a holiday traveler.
How about riding rapids on the River of the Red Ape? Or trekking into the Himalayas in Nepal, or going on safari atop this 35-year-old bull elephant. No, these are not fantasies, but real-life experiences, readily available for a price in the adventure travel business. Adventure travel is the fastest-growing segment of the U.S. travel industry, accounting for 5 to 10% of the $300 billion that Americans spent on tourism last year. In the last 5 years, adventure travel has doubled, and today there are 8,000 to 10,000 tour operators worldwide, offering a broad selection of experiences. Sobeck's International Explorer Society will deliver a rare but rigorous physical challenge. Price tag $2,500. Gets you to a remote corner of Sumatra on the Alas River in Southeast Asia, where you may come face to face with the rare and endangered orangutan.
You know how to write? Did they teach you this?
Then how about relaxing by taking on these rapids and finishing your run with a float through limestone canyons and cascading crystal waterfalls? Or for the avant-garde hungry for culture, how about exploring a Buddhist monastery near Mount Everest, then stopping to mingle or barter with friendly villagers? You don't have to be a mountain climber to experience adventure travel. Plenty of expeditions offer intrigue and excitement, some even with a pat of pampering or luxury. The only limit to adventure travel, your imagination. Tom Cassidy, CNN Business News, New York.
Headline Sports is next. It's 49 minutes past the hour. Time for Headline Sports.
This is Tom Steiner, Headline Sports. On the final day of the first half of the baseball season, 3 teams made moves that they hope will bolster their pitching staffs. A day after tossing a shutout at Wrigley Field, lefty Steve Trout was traded from the Cubs to the Yankees for right-hander Bob Tewksbury and a pair of minor league pitchers. The Texas Rangers signed drug-troubled Steve Howe to a minor league contract. Since he hasn't been cleared by Commissioner Peter Ueberroth to return to the majors, Howe will play for the Rangers AAA team in Oklahoma City. A former National League Rookie of the Year with the Dodgers, the left-handed reliever hasn't pitched in the big leagues since 1985. That's when he was released by the Minnesota Twins because of his cocaine abuse. Mired in 6th place in the 7-team American League West, the Rangers held off lowly Cleveland in the lone game under the lights. At the break, the New York Yankees have a 3-game lead over Toronto in the East. The New Yorkers closed out the first half with a 6-2 win over the White Sox. Called up from the minors last week for the 3rd time this season, Henry Cotto went 3 for 4 with a 2-run homer and a 2-run double. Meanwhile, in Toronto, the Jays dumped the Royals 3-2. Jesse Barfield broke a 2-all tie when he drove in Kelly Gruber from 3rd with 2 outs in the 7th. Kansas City stays 2 games back of Minnesota in the West because the Twins were blanked in Baltimore 5-0. Dave Schmidt tossed a 2-hitter for his 9th win. He got offensive support from Mike Young, who blasted a pair of 2-run homers. On the American League scoreboard, the Angels held off the Tigers, Seattle crushed Boston, and the Milwaukee Brewers nipped the Athletics. After their 9-game winning streak was halted Saturday night, the National League East-leading Cardinals quickly got back on the winning track, 3-2 over the Giants. Willie McGee stole the show at the plate, going 3 for 4 with a run batted in. Elsewhere, Bobby Bonilla's 2-run homer powered Pittsburgh past the Padres. Gary Renicky drove in 3 runs with a homer and a double in the Braves win. Expos won their 3rd straight. The West-leading Reds have now lost 6 of their last 7. Dodgers cruised past the Cubs, and the Mets beat the Astros. A pair of young and talented Swedes squared off in the final of the U.S. Pro Championships. Top-seeded Mats Wilander outgunned compatriot Kent Carlson in straight sets, 7-6 and 6-1 to win this clay court tournament for the 2nd time in 3 years. To Fairfield, Connecticut, and the 3rd leg of the Senior Grand Slam, Gary Player fired a sizzling 500 par 66 to win the U.S. Senior Open by 6 shots. His 14 under total smashed the tourney record by 9 strokes. Tom Steiner, Headline Sports.
I'm Don Harrison, and here's who's news. Polly Hopkins of Morgan County, Kentucky, says she used to be called the poor man's granny, but she's more than that. She's actually a life giver. Hopkins is a midwife, and she's brought about 300 babies into the world. At age 66, there's no sign of slowing down.
Back before we got roads, I rode a horse a lot and walked up these hollows and across the mountains. Really enjoyed it. I like to help people.
I'm Don Harrison, Headline News.
In the headlines, the perjury trial of former White House aide Michael Deaver begins this morning. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North appears before Congress again amid a report former National Security Advisor John Poindexter told the president about the diversion of Iranian arms sales profits. Opening arguments begin today in McMartin preschool molestation case, and Hollywood directors and producers meet today in an effort to avert a strike. With the top stories, I'm Robin Welch.
More news after this.
I'm George Plimpton, inviting you to the pleasures of Architectural Digest, the international magazine of fine interior design that lets you inside the world's most celebrated homes. Here is Jane Seymour's sunny country-style home. The rooms where Donald Trump finds his inspiration, high above the streets of Manhattan. Johnny Carson's contemporary hideaway overlooking the rolling Pacific. And look how much fun David Hockney has had with his West Coast home. Architectural Digest lets you see the homes our foremost architects and designers consider their own proudest achievements. Doesn't Architectural Digest belong in your home?
Call now to receive a year's subscription to Architectural Digest. Get 12 monthly issues for only $29.95. Save almost 45% off the cover price. Order now and receive at no additional charge future editions of Architectural Digest Travels magazine. Call 1-800-533-1400. 1-800-533-1400.
In dollars and cents, employee leasing may be the newest answer to business management problems. Advocates say it's an idea that makes everybody a winner. Beverly Shook explains.
More and more, the answer to personnel administrative headaches is simply to fire the employees, eliminating the time and money-consuming tasks of payroll and health plans. Firms then lease workers back through an employee leasing service.
No matter whom you talk to that's part of a leased arrangement, they find that their time is now free to run their business, and they're increasing their bottom line. That's really what we're talking about.
The service fee runs between 5 and 10% above an employer's total payroll costs. And according to one satisfied customer, the time and aspirin it saves makes it a valuable investment.
It's a tremendous savings because just to administrate the whole problem is a headache.
And in the spirit of
what's good for them is good for me,
the boss fired himself and leased himself back. Leasing gives employees advantages because a leasing company buys in volume. A small firm can offer health care benefits at a comparable cost and coverage of a large corporation.
The most important thing I considered was the benefits package because I needed the medical coverage as a single parent.
And because the leasing company also acts as mediator, the leased employee may actually feel more secure about his or her job.
They can't be fired at the drop of a hat. You know, if the employer has a bad morning and doesn't get his cup of coffee, their jobs aren't at risk.
Right now, the greatest growth for leasing companies is coming from smaller firms, which have the most to gain. But as an innovative new service, it's an industry to watch. Beverly Shook, CNN Business News, New York.
Checking today's weather, showers and thunderstorms are forecast from Arkansas to the lower Great Lakes region. Rain is on tap for the Atlantic coast states and the southern plains. Many young children learn to swim each summer, but some are now learning life-saving techniques. Taylor Henry reports on one would-be hero who is just 2 years old.
It could be every parent's nightmare. An 11-month-old baby ends up in a swimming pool. But in this case, his 2-year-old sister runs to his rescue. Brandon isn't really drowning. His sister Brittany is practicing what to do if he were.
Hurry up, rescue him. No, go. Brittany, look back at the wall. Hold the head up. Oh, that's pretty good, Brittany.
Brittany may just be the youngest person in the world with life-saving skills. Her instructor, Olympic gold medalist Greta Anderson, is a firm believer in teaching life-saving to young children like Brittany before they can even walk.
If they can't walk and they're young, they don't have the fear and they learn a lot faster.
The parents of Brittany and Brandon, who live just a short walk from an ocean beach, say these lessons were a precaution they felt they had to take.
It was natural for Brittany to learn how to save Brandon in case he ever fell in. Do you like saving Brandon?
Yeah. It's not enough to just be a floater. Today you have to be a swimmer. There's too many pools and there's too many backyards.
Throughout the country, from Southern California to Atlanta, parents are enrolling their young children in courses like these, which teach them not only how to save each other from drowning, but themselves as well.
This is not a fun and game type activity. Our primary focus is survival.
Some experts believe children under 3 years old are too young to swim. Among other things, there's a danger they might swallow too much water. But Brittany and Brandon's parents are confident their children are in good hands.
Oh, that's beautiful. Just hold her. No, hold her. Hold her head. Hold her head. Hold her head.
And these children are learning that life-saving has its rewards, not only in the water, but out of it as well. Taylor Henry, CNN, Los Angeles.
I'm Lynn Vaughn. Around the world in 30 minutes, this is Headline News.
This is my niece, Mary Devon. She's 11 years old. I asked her to help me warn people that smoking's bad for them. And she said she hates smoking so much she didn't even want to talk about it. So I said, fine, she could just sit here and not talk about it if she wanted to. But Mary Devon, honey, now that you're here with a chance to influence millions of people, isn't there anything you want to tell the cigarette smokers of America?
Don't.
That's my niece. She'll talk your ear off if you let her.
From Turner Broadcasting System, this is the Headline News Network.
Stand by for a shop-at-home bulletin direct from the New York showroom, where credit card customers call in for a free gift plus unheard-of discounts on advanced design products like this first-class leather travel bag. The Clincher by English Leather. The first-class look, the butter-soft feel, the rich aroma of genuine leather. Price of the English Leather first-class travel bag? Not $100, not $60, but just $39.95. Call now. So with the English Leather bag, we'll also send free the fabulous Pierre Cardin travel alarm clock, wallet folding leatherette, digital quartz accuracy, and a tiny nightlight. The English Leather Clincher, plus a free Cardin travel clock. All yours for just $39.95. Call now for rush delivery.
Credit cards only by phone. Call 800-257-1333. The Clincher by English Leather plus free Pierre Cardin travel clock, just $39.95. Call 800-257-1333.
Headline News, I'm Lynn Vaughn. There are reports of more tension in the Persian Gulf today. According to the captain of a French-registered container ship, 2 Iranian gunboats attacked his vessel just east of the Saudi Arabian coast. There are as yet no reports of casualties. The South Korean government is getting a facelift. President Chun Doo-hwan accepted the resignation of his prime minister and 8 cabinet members today. The reshuffling is an apparent effort to install a neutral cabinet during the last 7 months of Chun's rule. Chun has named elder statesman Kim Chung-yul to assume the post of prime minister. Some specific messages between Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North and his former boss, Admiral John Poindexter, are sure to come up this week during the Iran-Contra hearings. If North finishes his testimony today, Poindexter is scheduled to appear before the congressional investigators tomorrow. Mary Tillotson tells us what else may be on the agenda this week.
Oliver North's first 4 days of public testimony pointed tantalizingly up the White House chain of command toward his former NSC boss and the committee's next witness, John Poindexter.
The facts to which Oliver North has testified to date generally have corroborating evidence that would support that he believed he was acting under the chain of command and that the President of the United States had authorized his activity.
According to members of Congress, one of the documents showing North was acting on behalf of superiors is a memo from North to Poindexter requesting presidential approval to use profits from the Iran arms deal for covert activities. Committee Chairman Daniel Inouye says Admiral Poindexter's notes on the memo imply presidential approval was given.
And the Admiral says, I approve, and then there was a notation, brief the President approves.
Inouye says the memo makes no specific mention of the possibly illegal diversion of money to the Contras. The committee clearly will question Poindexter closely on whether he did brief the president and on what, if anything, the president did approve. But committee Vice Chairman Warren Rudman says there has been too much emphasis on such legal questions rather than on the broad policy questions raised by the White House decision to try and ransom hostages by selling arms to Iran and by some administration officials misleading Congress about White House involvement in the war in Nicaragua.
In a democracy, if you carry this to its logical extreme, you don't have a democracy anymore.
Senator Rudman says members of Congress will have had a chance to express their views, put Oliver North in that broader context, by the time they finish questioning North, probably Monday. But Congress will be playing catch-up, given the 4 days that Oliver North, virtually unchallenged by elected members of Congress, defined the context his way. A context that was flattering both to North and the administration officials and policies he apparently served so loyally. Mary Tillotson, CNN, Washington.
Time and Newsweek magazines have surveyed the American public for their opinions of Oliver North's performance at the hearings. In the Time poll, 84% of those questioned feel any secret activities North performed were approved by higher-ranking officials. Slightly fewer people felt that way in the Newsweek poll. Jury selection gets underway this morning in the perjury trial of former White House aide Michael Deaver. Bob Franken looks at Deaver's fall from power.
Michael Deaver was one of the top White House advisors, confidant to President and Mrs. Reagan, their friend for 20 years. Many say, had Deaver not departed to start a private lobbying firm, the administration wouldn't be in the Iran-Contra trouble it's in now. But Deaver is also in trouble, indicted March 18th in connection with his lobbying activities, charged specifically with 5 counts of perjury, allegedly committed during testimony before the grand jury and before a House Energy and Commerce Subcommittee chaired by Congressman John Dingell.
The indictment alleges that I perjured myself when I testified before Mr. Dingell's subcommittee last May and when I testified before the grand jury in June. I did not.
Deaver became the first person indicted under the Ethics in Government Act, which allowed for the appointment of independent counsel Whitney North Seymour. Deaver had requested an independent counsel investigation after charges his lobbying activities violated conflict of interest laws, that Deaver had illegally traded on his White House influence on behalf of clients who paid huge retainers. Those clients included corporations and countries, among them the government of Canada. But shortly before the indictments, Deaver tried to prevent them by arguing the judicially appointed independent counsels are unconstitutional. Some legal experts describe that as merely a delaying tactic.
And as a practical matter, it would turn out that virtually everything that had been compiled in the past could still be used in the future.
It was just this month Supreme Court Chief Justice William Rehnquist gave the final approval to proceed. After all the legal maneuvering, Deaver must now face charges that carry a maximum $34,000 fine and 25 years in prison.
I am confident I have not committed perjury and that I will be acquitted after a trial.
Deaver's once lucrative business has virtually shut down. All this slightly more than 2 years since he departed his job at the very pinnacle of White House power. Bob Franken, CNN, Washington.
The McMartin preschool molestation case is finally going to trial. Opening arguments begin today in Los Angeles in the 3-year-old case against Peggy McMartin Buckey and her son Raymond. Ann McDermott reports.
The allegations that surfaced in early 1984 were nothing less than monstrous. Youngster after youngster from the McMartin preschool in Manhattan Beach, California, claimed to have been raped there or sodomized, sometimes even threatened with death. And they blamed their torment on their teachers. Virginia McMartin, founder of the highly regarded school, her daughter Peggy McMartin Buckey, and her children Raymond Buckey and Peggy Ann Buckey, plus 3 other women who taught there. But now only Raymond Buckey and his mother will go on trial.
The evidence and the indication as to the other 5 is incredibly weak and could not justify the possibility of filing criminal charges.
The defense team has argued that the evidence is weak against the Buckeys as well, and that the case was mishandled from the beginning. That would have been in September of 1983, when the Manhattan Beach Police Department mailed a letter to all McMartin parents. It said Raymond Buckey had been arrested on charges of child molestation, and parents were asked to question their children about him. Those charges against Buckey were eventually dropped, but the defense contends the letters whipped up a kind of hysteria, which was later inflamed by therapists who interviewed McMartin students. Before the therapists got involved, only one child claimed he'd been abused. Defense attorneys believe those therapists prodded the other children into making similar claims.
Children, I sense, came to believe what didn't happen did happen. So there has been a mind distortion.
The 7 teachers were arrested, and children began testifying during an 18-month preliminary hearing. Former defendant Peggy Ann Buckey recalled her frustration as the children's accusations grew wilder.
Like some of the allegations, children went in airplanes, children saw babies killed, and no one questions it. No one says, wait a minute, how come no one saw this? Where are these dead babies?
One who did ponder such questions was prosecutor Glenn Stevens, whose doubts eventually led to his removal from the case. He's since come to believe all the defendants are innocent. But prosecutor Lael Rubin seems confident the 100 felony molestation counts against the Buckeys will be proven.
We expect to present evidence to substantiate those charges and to have a jury make that decision.
Although the trial is finally getting underway, no one expects a conclusion anytime soon. After all, the preliminary hearing took 1.5 years. The trial itself could take 2 years. Ann McDermott, CNN, Los Angeles.
We're coming to you this morning from our new state-of-the-art studios at CNN Center in downtown Atlanta. For more than a year, architects, engineers, and news executives have been planning and designing this new facility. Since Headline News first went on the air 5.5 years ago, we have brought you more than 96,000 newscasts. And our new home will help us bring you the latest news for many, many years to come. Coming up, what's new in comic books and a look at the high price being paid for older collectibles. There's a revision to the script depicting the battle between the Directors Guild of America and film and TV producers. Both sides have agreed to talk this morning in a last-ditch effort to iron out their differences. Union directors are still preparing for a selective strike against NBC and 2 Hollywood studios beginning tomorrow. Producers say if that happens, all Guild members will be locked out. One of the tense topics to hit Major League Baseball this year has been the lack of black managers. That's not the case at a new league in New York. Richard Roth reports.
It's not the big leagues, but this Long Island Summer Baseball League does have something the majors do not have: black baseball managers.
Yeah, that'll work, yeah.
Blacks manage all 4 teams in the new Empire State Baseball League. Among them, Brian Flood, nephew of Cardinals star Curt Flood, and former major leaguer George the Boomer Scott.
I don't like to be considered as a black manager. I just want to be considered as a manager.
But Scott and opposing manager Flood see the major leagues moving closer to hiring a black in the dugout.
People are more aware now, and there are going to be jobs. It has to be jobs. This is the 80s.
The 4 black managers were picked with the help of the commissioner's office by the founder of the league.
Well, they were really the 4 best people we could get, baseball-wise, and you know, it's not like we went looking to get 4 black guys out here.
Literary agent Acton formed the league to give him some baseball fun closer to home and to provide a last chance for some 80 players. The Empire State teams have no affiliation with a major league club, but the former college players and their managers are determined to impress.
I beat him last week, beat his socks off.
Gee whiz, thanks.
If they can do the job, it doesn't matter what color they are. I really don't see, the big deal about it. I mean, they treat them different, and I think that's bad.
The boomer doesn't care about skin color, just the batting average. And if a player doesn't hit,
today he's sitting with me.
Well, everybody deserves an opportunity. If they're in there playing, they should have an opportunity managing also.
This guy don't even have a cap on. Come out on the ball field, the TV cameras on him, everything. He don't even have his cap on.
it's a meeting of oddities at home plate. 2 black baseball managers and a woman umpire.
I try not to think that I'm being discriminated against, but I do feel that there are a lot of people in front office managerial jobs that have very backward ideas about women and minorities.
Why did turn it out there? Why did turn it?
Richard Roth, CNN, Hempstead, New York.
Negative results look positive for a group of medical workers at Grant Medical Center in Columbus, Ohio. A spokesman says 26 emergency and medical employees who were exposed to large amounts of blood from an AIDS victim last month have tested negative for the disease. The workers weren't wearing full protection while treating the victim. The wandering garbage barge gets another day in court. Hearings are scheduled in New York Supreme Court this afternoon to determine if the city can burn the trash in Brooklyn. That plan is opposed by the borough's president, who says more research is needed to determine the environmental impact of incinerating the garbage. Comic books have been entertaining readers, young and old, for decades, but they aren't just for fun anymore. Jim Redmond reports comics are for profit, too.
Spider-Man turns 25 this year, but interest in the web-slinging do-gooder and his pals is far from growing old.
Like a role model. If you could be like him, it's like a fantasy-like thing. It's like a way of escape.
But of course, tastes vary among true aficionados.
I caught basically Judge Dredd and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Not exactly the standard fare.
No, I don't like the superhero stuff. It just doesn't seem real to me.
Comic book conventions like this one draw more than youngsters simply dodging school books. John Ferranti is 23.
It's a hobby and it's a good investment. It's as good as the stock market, investing in the stock market.
Now, what'd you find here today?
I found Avengers #4, and I'd say fine condition. I paid $95 for it. It's from the early 60s, and it's appreciating like about 25% each year.
In fact, there is a lot of money in the stacks of comic books that virtually every mother has threatened to throw out at one time or another. There have been some changes over the years, and the talk of the comic world this month is the wedding of this guy.
It introduces, opens up all sorts of new storylines where we have a superhero in the 80s married to an independent woman. It's really a breakthrough in that compared to a certain competitor who has never been able to marry Lois Lane, we at Marvel were able to take that next step.
For Marvel, it's a big risk. To readers who grew up with Spider-Man and are now getting married themselves, the move lets Spider-Man keep up. But the question becomes, will the married web-slinger be able to snare another generation of comic book readers? For CNN in Rochester, New York, Jim Redmond reporting.
An Italian man can't quite believe he's a new world record holder. He entered a cave last December trying to shatter the record for complete isolation. When he was contacted yesterday by Morse code signal, he thought it was only March. When told it was really July, he messaged back, thrilling but a debatable joke. Headline Sports is next.
Claude Akins here for Super Polygrip. Hey, if you wear dentures, I'll bet you know the pain of getting food stuck between your dentures and gums, like these darn seeds. Ouch! Let me tell you about Super Polygrip. Watch. You see how it forms this seal between your dentures and gums? That's why Super Polygrip helps keep food out, dentures in. Simple. If you like to eat like I do. Remember, Super Polygrip keeps food out, dentures in.
It's 19 minutes past the hour. Time for Headline Sports.
I'm Steve Getty, Headline Sports. The All-Star break is here, and St. Louis finds itself with the best mark in all of baseball with a 9-game lead in the National League East. Terry Pendleton's 7th home run helped the Redbirds to a 3-2 win over the Giants, their 10th win in their last 11 outings. What, might you ask, is this security official doing with the baseball in the far reaches of Three Rivers Stadium? Moments earlier, Bobby Bonilla became only the 2nd player to ever reach the upper deck in right field with this 2-run shot as the Bucs stopped San Diego 4-2. Bob Welch fired a 4-hitter as the Dodgers blanked Chicago 12-0. After the game, Cubs skipper Gene Michael was more upset with news from the front office. Steve Trout was traded to the Yankees for Bob Tewksbury and 2 minor leaguers. Gary Renicky homered and doubled as the Braves bombed the Phillies 9-3. Renicky's round tripper was his 4th in 6 games. Bob Sebra and Andy McGaffigan 3-hit the Reds. The Mets scorched the Astros. Milwaukee rallied for a 4-3 win at Oakland. The Brewers tallied 3 runs in the 8th, highlighted by Greg Brock's game-winning single that plated Brabham Yount from second base. Mike Young belted a pair of 2-run homers. Dave Schmidt 2-hit the Twins in the Orioles' 5-0 victory. Bob Boone came up with 3 base hits as the California Angels scored a 5-4 victory over the visiting Detroit Tigers. New York sports the AL's best mark at the break after a 6-2 win over Chicago. Henry Cotto, recently recalled for a 3rd time, keyed the win with a 2-run blast. Jesse Barfield's 7th-inning single broke a 2-2 deadlock. The Blue Jays topped the Royals 3-2. Gary Matthews homered in his first ever American League at-bat. The Mariners thumped Boston. Under the lights, Texas overcame a 4-0 deficit to beat Cleveland. Before the contest, pitcher Steve Howe was signed by the Rangers to a AAA contract. Suspended from baseball for 2 years because of drug problems, Howe will report to Oklahoma City.
I think the initiative that he's shown has convinced us that it's not as big a gamble as a lot of people think.
In golf, Gary Player captured the U.S. Senior Open by 6 shots over Doug Sanders. The 72-hole effort broke the old tournament record by 9 strokes. And Mark McCumber, winless on the PGA in over 2 years, nipped Bobby Clampett by a stroke to win the Anheuser-Busch Golf Classic. Steve Getty, Headline Sports.
I'm Don Harrison, and adventure travel is what's hot. Ever considered a rafting vacation? How about a hike in the Himalayas? Vacation once implied rest, but more and more Americans are looking for adventure. For $2,500, any game tourist can meet an orangutan face-to-face in a remote area of Southeast Asia.
All right. They teach you this?
I'm Don Harrison, Headline News.
In the headlines, the perjury trial of former White House aide Michael Deaver begins this morning. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North appears before congressional investigators again today. President Reagan travels to Indiana to push for his economic Bill of Rights. And in Korea, President Chun Doo-hwan accepted the resignation of 9 cabinet ministers. With the top stories, I'm Stan Case.
More news after this.
If you've neglected to prepare a will, consider this. Without a will, the court, not you, decides who receives your property and in what amounts, who manages the affairs of your estate, who becomes the guardian of your minor children. Also, your loved ones could face high costs and needless delays, regardless of the size of your estate. Failing to make a will means taking unnecessary chances. The Plan Safe Will Kit is now available so you can have a will without the costly expense. Prepared by lawyers, it is absolutely valid in all 50 states. You will receive simple fill-in-the-blank will forms with easy-to-follow directions. Our guidebook will give you a full understanding of this most important document. Order now and we'll send you this handsome organizer as a free gift. The Plan Safe Will Kit is yours for only $9.95. Money back if not delighted. Order now.
Credit card users call toll-free 1-800-533-1400 or send just $9.95 plus $1 for rush shipping to Will Kit, Box 8207, Atlanta, Georgia. 30306.
And Dollars and cents. Though computers are technological marvels, they still come up with some glitches. Charles Crawford found one way to iron them out.
This is the top of a computer terminal made by injecting plastic into a mold. This is what happens when the plastic is not injected correctly. Now, manufacturers can avoid defective parts like this and other mistakes by using computer programs that simulate problems before they occur. This project at GE Plastics is one example of the current generation of computer-aided design and manufacturing programs. The process starts with a designer who decides the shape of the object to be built. From the beginning, the evolving design is accessible in the computer to the engineers who will test the product and the tool maker who will make the mold.
You can reduce the amount of time it takes to get from concept to first parts.
Engineers can use the program to simulate tests on a part before it actually exists. In the past, it had to be manufactured first, and if there was a miscalculation, much of the previous work had to be redone. Now, the terminal housing has a better chance of being made correctly the first time. The manufacturers can choose the smallest amount of plastic needed to meet strength requirements. Once the size and shape of the part are decided, the program helps design the mold needed to make the part. When the design for the mold is ready, the mold manufacturer works directly from the computer database, cutting the mold along predetermined paths.
We could actually, just through data transfer and them furnishing us with a cutter pass, be able to cut that part without ever having a blueprint on the part. It shortens up our engineering time considerably. The whole mold manufacturing cycle is shortened as a result of it.
GE Plastics officials say with current software, manufacturers can go from concept to finished product in 1/3 of the time it took in the past. Charles Crawford, CNN, reporting.
Many young children learn how to swim, but at one California class, kids learn more than just keeping their heads above water. Taylor Henry explains.
It could be every parent's nightmare. An 11-month-old baby ends up in a swimming pool. But in this case, his 2-year-old sister runs to his rescue. Brandon isn't really drowning. His sister Brittany is practicing what to do if he were.
Hurry up, rescue him. No, go. Brittany, look back at the wall. Hold the head up. Oh, that's pretty good, Brittany.
Brittany may just be the youngest person in the world with life-saving skills. Her instructor, Olympic gold medalist Greta Anderson, is a firm believer in teaching life-saving to young children like Brittany before they can even walk.
If they can't walk and they're young, they don't have the fear and they learn a lot faster.
The parents of Brittany and Brandon, who live just a short walk from an ocean beach, say these lessons were a precaution they felt they had to take.
It was natural for Brittany to learn how to save Brandon in case he ever fell in. Do you like saving Brandon?
Yeah. It's not enough to just be a floater. Today you have to be a swimmer. There's too many pools and there's too many backyards.
Throughout the country, from Southern California to Atlanta, parents are enrolling their young children in courses like these, which teach them not only how to save each other from drowning, but themselves as well.
This is not a fun and game type activity. Our primary focus is survival.
Some experts believe children under 3 years old are too young to swim. Among other things, there's a danger they might swallow too much water. But Brittany and Brandon's parents are confident their children are in good hands.
Oh, that's beautiful. Just hold her. No, hold her. Hold her head. Hold her head. Hold her head.
And these children are learning that life-saving has its rewards, not only in the water, but out of it as well. Taylor Henry, CNN, Los Angeles.
I'm Lynn Vaughn. Around the world in 30 minutes, this is Headline News.
Mm. 7,000 babies will die this year, victims of sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS. Researchers are struggling to find the reasons for this leading killer of children between the ages of 1 week and 1 year. Research is moving slowly, and our babies are dying. We need your help. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Please call 1-800-221-SIDS, because every baby deserves to see the morning light.
From Turner Broadcasting System, this is the Headline News Network.
There she was, just walking down the street singing.
Silver Eagle Records presents the very best of British rock,
50 original hits by the original stars in this sensational collection. To order, call the number on your screen.
Oh yeah, you really got me now. Bus stop, wet day, she's there. I say, please share my umbrella. Please don't bother trying to find her. She's not there.
This giant TV collection is not sold in stores. You must order now.
In the sunshine of your love.
The very best of British rock. 50 original hits by the original stars. On 4 LPs or 3 long-play cassettes, just $19.95. Or on 2 compact discs, only $24.95. Write or call now.
Headline news, I'm Min Vaughn. Oliver North begins his 5th and possibly final day before congressional investigators at the Iran-Contra hearings this morning. If North finishes today, his former boss, Admiral John Poindexter, may face questions about a memo written by North as early as tomorrow. That memo reportedly states Poindexter briefed President Reagan about the use of Iranian arms sales money for covert operations worldwide, but it did not specifically mention diverting profits to the Contras. With the Iran-Contra spotlight shining so brightly on Oliver North, many may have forgotten independent counsel Lawrence Walsh is building a case against him. Wendy Rieger reports.
Independent counsel Lawrence Walsh has a problem, and you're looking at it. Oliver North. Using this face and his newfound charisma, North demonstrated this week that he can be an attractive and sympathetic figure. This is the man Walsh may ultimately have to prosecute. Oliver North's sensational appearance on Capitol Hill created several problems. Under the principle of limited use immunity, Walsh has to prove he built his case with material gathered independently of this hearing. And in court, he has to prove the jury has not been influenced by this week's public spectacle.
How can you possibly guarantee that that will not influence something that goes on at the trial? Some juror, somebody's conduct, some judge. And if that is so, the privilege against self-incrimination has been violated, and you cannot proceed with the criminal proceeding against North.
I sought approval of my superiors for every one of my actions, and it is well documented.
North made it clear he would not be the fall guy in court and successfully brought his superiors into the spotlight, specifically former National Security Advisor Admiral John Poindexter and the late CIA Director William Casey.
What I think he has done is to diffuse responsibility and make it much harder for a prosecutor or for a juror to focus on Oliver North.
William Casey's death provides a convenient out for those wanting to shift blame. He can't contradict the testimony, but legal experts warn this is a double-edged sword. The closer Casey gets to the fire, the easier it is for his friend, President Ronald Reagan, to get burned. North already created that possibility. This week when Poindexter comes to Capitol Hill, we'll see if the other shoe's going to drop. Wendy Rieger, CNN, Washington.
There are reports of more tension in the Persian Gulf today. According to the captain of a French freighter, 2 Iranian gunboats attacked his vessel near the Saudi Arabian coast this morning. But the captain added none of his crew were hurt in the attack. A group opposed to U.S. policy in Central America says Salvadoran death squads may